The time is 13 minutes past 9. You're still tuned in to Salam Media. We are going to be talking to Makashule Gana right now. He's the organizer, chief organizer of Rise Mzansi, one of the new political parties that are going to be contesting the elections. This is a new segment. It's called Policy Preview, where we're going to be speaking to, well, almost every political party that we can get hold of that has launched their manifesto. And they'll be telling us about what their manifesto entails in the briefest short period of time. We're going to give them just a short time as we lead up to the elections. And joining us, the first one on this inaugural episode of Policy Preview is Makashule Gana of Rise Mzansi. He's the chief organizer. Makashule, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning, Slilo, and a very good morning to your listeners and viewers.
Rise Mzansi, we're seeing posters everywhere. One of the new formed parties that are going to be contesting the elections. One of 138 parties that if I'm not mistaken, that are going to be contesting. As someone that's sitting at home, as someone that's registered to vote, and I think everyone should be registered to vote. Why should they be voting for Rise Mzansi, a new party, relatively new in the South African political landscape, unknown, no track record? But what do you bring to the table?
Thanks very much. So what we bring to the table, it's a committed leadership, a leadership that's honest in serving the country and the people of this country. What we aim to do as Rise Mzansi, and it's a commitment that we've made not only to ourselves, but also to the country, it's to build a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa in one generation. And we see the problems, and that's what our manifesto responds to, is that the reason we are feeling unsafe, the reason many South Africans go to bed hungry, the reason more South Africans live in abject poverty is the kind of leadership and the governance that we currently have under this government. So Rise Mzansi is established as a response to the leadership crisis that we face as a country, the governance crisis that we face as a country. So one of the things that we want to do is to ensure that the kind of leaders that we elect and deploy to parliament must be the most capable and most ethical in order to save and rebuild our country. The second priority of Rise Mzansi is to protect the people of South Africa, is to protect the properties and assets of the people of South Africa and ensure that the rule of law it's applied without fear and favor. We are seeing a lot of things that are going wrong. Even the police themselves are no longer feeling safe. This is the conversations that we've had on the ground. The third priority for us as Rise Mzansi is to ensure that the economy works and there are jobs for South Africans. And we see a direct link to the crime, to the corruption, and the state of the economy. So it's important that in addressing the economy, we need to address the crime and the criminality situation in this country so that the economy can work for the people of South Africa, so that the people can be able to uplift their lives. So some of the constraints to the economy, it's Eskom. Eskom is a big constraint. Transnet, it's a big constraint. So rooting out the corruption and the criminal elements in both Eskom and Transnet is critical in what the Rise Mzansi seeks to do. Equally, we need to ensure that the public service is professionalized and depoliticized from the interference of political parties. The fourth, I'll just quickly deal with the fourth and the fifth aspect, which speaks to the individual and family well-being. In here, we are proposing, for instance, a tax relief for single mothers so that they can ease the burden of care that they are currently having. We're talking about the climate crisis, beyond just the coal and solar. It's for us to how we respond to the climate crisis that we see many of our fellow South Africans when there are heavy rains, there are floods all over the place. there are dry weather conditions. So we need to have a proper response to this to ensure that our South Africans can still be able to farm and feed themselves.
Makashule, I think a lot of critics argue that the emergence of I know we don't want to use the term small parties anymore. Let's say new parties. Um, you know, it's not working. For the country, you have parties that are coming in droves. I think when I opened, I said around 138 parties are now registered with the IEC. Rise Mzansi, how will you guys, realign, the country's politics, and how do you respond to that criticism that, every time the elections are around the corner, you have a new party popping up. Elections come, they don't get any seat in government, and then they disappear again. How would you respond to that criticism of new parties every election popping up?
So if the politics of South Africa and the politicians that we have were working to keep South Africans safe, were working to ensure that South Africans uh, can build the kind of lives for themselves and their families, to ensure that business invest in South Africa and there's no crime situation in the country, there will be no need for organizations like ourselves. The reason Rise Mzansi is established as a response of the decay, the rot that is set in the body politic of South Africa. So we need to accept one thing, that the old is dying and the new has just been born. For others, it might seem like you must always have the, let's call it, the big two parties that continue in perpetuity. It's not going to happen. They are going to die. And Rise Mzansi, as one of the new ones, will not be new anymore in 5 years' time. Will be a well-established organization that will be having support, that will have members of parliament, that will have members of legislature, that will have councillors. So by the next time we go to the general elections in 2029, Rise Mzansi will not be classified as a new organization. It will be classified as a true representative of the people of South Africa.
I think for our audience, I think a major point of interest would be Rise Mzansi's, position when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East, and how Israel has been, for years, occupied Palestine land and continue, to, enslave and kill and put people of Palestine under enormous forms of oppression. Where does Rise Mzansi stand when it comes to that issue?
So, as Rise Mzansi, one, our foreign policy will be informed by respecting the human rights, wherever the abuse of human rights happen, including in Palestine and other areas. We will be able to raise our voice. We have long called that the current conflict that's happening between the people. I mean, what Israel is doing in Gaza and so forth needs to be investigated by an international body. So that's why we are not opposed to the court case that South Africa has brought to the ICJ, because we believe that what's currently happening, it's violating serious human rights for people that reside in Gaza, and we have been at the forefront of calling for a ceasefire.
Mm, mm. And I think looking at Rise Mzansi's leader, Mr. Ziwi, there hasn't been a lot of scandals that we know of that he's been embroiled in, and I think in the South African political sphere, that's always an issue. How does Rise Mzansi plan, to maintain transparency and accountability in its leadership, so that we don't see the trend where the voters, put in that trust and believe and give you their vote, and then a few years down the line, the so-called small skeletons in the closet start coming out?
What I can assure you and your listeners and viewers is that the kind of leaders that Rise Mzansi will put forward will be the most ethical, will be the most capable, to serve the people of this country. So that's something that even ourselves, we continuously check whether we are staying true to our commitment. So we'll continue to ensure that the most capable and the most ethical get to serve South Africa.
And let's talk about primary ambitions. The general elections are close by. Where does Rise Mzansi see itself after the votes have been counted? And what happens when those ambitions are not met? Are you dissolving? Are you waiting for the next 4 years to come along? What's the plan around that? If you can give insight to potential voters that are listening to Salam Media right now.
So, as a chief organizer of Rise Mzansi, I see Rise Mzansi in parliament. It will be in parliament. Rise Mzansi will be in many legislatures in our country. That's what I commit myself to. That's what I've committed to the leadership of Rise Mzansi as a chief organizer, that we will be in parliament, we will be in the legislatures, and we'll continue to work in our communities. Regardless of the outcome of the elections, Rise Mzansi will continue to work in our communities. Rise Mzansi is not formed as a 2024 project. It's a long-term project. Hence, we talk of building a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa in one generation. This is a generational mission that we are taking so that we can leave behind a South Africa that's worth inheriting for the next generation.
And you obviously are in the organization. You obviously say the party is going to be in parliament, but reality on the ground might be something different. I ask again, what happens if Rise Mzansi doesn't even get one seat in parliament?
I tell you now, Slaelo, if the president was to call an election tomorrow, Rise Mzansi will be in parliament.
Confident,
I tell you now that if the president was to call an election tomorrow, Rise Mzansi will be in parliament. So the question of what happens if we don't get a seat does not arise, because as things stands now, we've got seats in parliament. If the election was to be called now. That's because remember, Rise Mzansi has been on the ground, has been interacting with South Africans, and the response that we are getting, it's so positive, and I'm so confident that if an election was to be held tomorrow, Rise Mzansi will be in parliament.
But Makashule, we've seen so many times, people have rallies and they quote whatever you're saying right now, that we've spoken to the communities, we have a strong hold with our people on the ground, but then those numbers that they see at the rallies and the people wearing the t-shirts in the communities doesn't necessarily reflect to the votes when in the ballots. So I don't know.
I tell you now, without fear of contradiction, you can make this recording on the 24th of January 2024. Makashule Gana told you that after the election, Rise Mzansi will be in parliament.
All right. Thank you so much, Makashule Gana. A very confident Makashule Gana there, a chief organizer of Rise Mzansi there, sharing a bit of information on their manifesto. I'll hold you to it. I'm sure I will be talking after the elections. And thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thanks very much for having me, and have a good day.
You too. That's Makashule Gana, Rise Mzansi chief organizer, very confident chief organizer of Rise Mzansi, one of the new parties that have registered with the IEC, one of the new among 138 parties that are going to be contesting for the 2024 elections. This is a new segment that we're going to have. It's called Policy Preview. I can just put a disclaimer out there that all of the interviews that we're going to be, conducting with the various political parties are not paid for. This is just a social responsibility, that Salam Media has embarked on, where we feel like that our listeners should have at least an idea of who they'll be voting for going to the 2024 elections. We'll be dissecting the manifestos and policies of other various political parties every Wednesday, right here on Salam Media. Today we are on the inaugural one with Rise Mzansi, with a very confident Makashule Gana, who says by no fear, favor, no fluke, he's definitely sure that Rise Mzansi will be in parliament come post 2024 general elections. Well, you can deduce for yourself. Do you see Rise Mzansi in parliament? Is it a party that speaks to you? Do you feel like it's a party that speaks for you? Looking at their manifesto, are you confident that they might bring the change that you think the country needs after the elections? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking white genocide. Is it a myth? Is it fake news? We'll be shedding a bit of light on that with Professor Daryl Glazer. He's a professor in political studies at Wits University. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll see you on the flip side.